You are listening to the EPT Works Listen, Love, Give podcast. Hi, I'm Dr. Annette Cargioli, the Forgiveness Doctor. I'm here to help you create phenomenal health, happiness, and new life with energy, intuition, and forgiveness. EPT is short for Emotional Polarity Technique, an innovative, holistic emotional therapy that will change your life for good. You can subscribe to this podcast, get free EPT training at eptworks.com, and like us on Facebook. Have you ever wondered why your daughter not only looks just like your grandma, but also seems to act a lot like grandma as well? Or maybe you have noticed that even though your son has had an easy life in a loving family, he's always been a bit nervous, anxious, and fearful that something bad is going to happen. Or maybe you have noticed intense feelings of depression or insecurity in your own life that remind you of your dad, or your mom, or your grandmother, or grandfather. In EPT, we have always recognized the possibility that intense, stuck emotions could be the result of a trauma experience not in your life, but in the life of an ancestor. We call it generational memory. And science is now confirming that emotions can be inherited and that generational memory is a scientific reality. The topic of today's podcast is how EPT can help you heal from your inherited emotions, also known as generational memories. You're going to learn what is a generational memory, what scientists are confirming about generational memory, how to identify if a toxic emotional pattern is inherited from a previous generation. You will also learn exactly how to use EPT to release the energy pattern of generational memory. Let's start by talking about what science is discovering about generational memory. It has been accepted that your genetic structure, your genes, determine the makeup of your body, your hair color, your eye color, your shape, even your health weaknesses and strengths. Science has now discovered there is another component to this genetic structure. This component is called a methyl group. A methyl group is a free-floating, sticky sort of blob that can attach to your gene, and when it attaches, that sticky methyl group blob can influence how your gene expresses. It can literally turn the gene on or turn the gene off. You may be wondering why this sticky methyl group attachment on your gene is so important to scientists who are studying it. Well, there are scientists who are looking to heal cancer, and they have spotted these sticky methyl group attachments on the genes of cancer patients. It is this methyl group attachment on the gene that is causing the body to express with the formation of cancerous tissue. Basically, it turns on the formation of cancer. They are hoping to discover a drug that can remove the sticky methyl group that is turning on the cancer gene and producing cancer in people. Because this methyl group is a free floating form outside of the gene structure itself, it has been called epigenetic. Epi meaning outer, nearby, or above the genetic structure. As I was saying, scientists are very interested in what causes this sticky methyl group to attach to the gene, and how can you remove a methyl group to stop its influence over the expression of your genes. So far, scientists are pretty certain that it is strong emotional events that cause the methyl group to attach. For example, scientists allowed a female rat to be abused by her sexual partner. She was so dominated and abused by her rat partner that she became constantly timid, anxious, and nervous. Her male partner was then removed forever from her life. When she had babies, her babies expressed the same emotional anxiety as their mother, even though they had never been dominated and abused. Another group of scientists exposed a female rat to extreme environmental toxins, causing an epigenetic change. Next, they placed her in a clean environment. Later on, her offspring for 2 generations were shown to have the same epigenetic change as their mother, even though they had never been exposed to the environmental toxins that their mother or grandmother had been exposed to. So what's all this mean? It means that the very real emotional trauma that your mother, father, grandmother, or grandfather endured could be influencing your gene expression. By inheriting this epigenetic change, you inherit the memory and that person's body response to that memory. So if your great-grandmother was dominated and abused by her father, and because of that, she hated herself and her life and wanted to die, you could carry these same ideas and feelings having inherited this from your grandmother, even though no one has ever abused you or treated you badly. If your grandparents went through a terrible famine where there was no food and there was a fear of death without food, you could have a serious obesity problem that has resulted from you inheriting this emotional fear of death and the need to constantly eat food and eat more food. And even though you have always had enough food and you've never been through a famine, and there's no reason for you to even think there won't be enough food. I've been using EPT to do some pretty amazing emotional healing for thousands of people for over 20 years. As you might imagine, the people who have taught me the most about healing are the ones I get stuck on. This is how I learned about genetic memory, with those clients who forced me to learn more. There are only 2 things you need to look for to know you are dealing with a genetic memory. Number 1, a client is having suffering that doesn't make any sense for his life history. For example, a woman who wants to die and hates herself even though she has never been abused, there is no known trauma, her birth family is doing their best to love and support her, her husband is supporting and loving, she is talented and beautiful. Number 2, a client has a clear mental script that helps to support their ongoing suffering. For example, this same woman that I mentioned before repeats a script. I'm afraid I can't do it. I deserve to die. It's all my fault. I hate my life. I don't deserve love. When someone comes back continually for care with the exact same emotional script and it doesn't make sense for their life history, it is an expression of someone else's traumatic life experience. Since scientists are theorizing that a strong emotional event is what causes the sticky methyl group to attach and influence the genetic structure and how the genes express, I am theorizing that a strong emotional event, such as a collapsing EPT release, can cause the sticky methyl group to detach so that it no longer influences your emotional expression the way it did before. Once you spot it, the emotional script that just does not make sense, you can muscle test to determine who the script actually belongs to. Just combine muscle testing with asking the body, is it mom? Is it dad? Maternal grandma? Grandpa? Paternal grandma? Grandpa? Great grandma? I had a woman, Lola, who I tested this way, and it was her father's mother. I asked Lola if she knew any trauma story about her grandmother. Turns out Lola's grandmother, Lucille, had 6 kids. When the oldest was 9, Lucille went out into a field and shot herself in the head. I had no idea when I was testing that I would find this tragic story. Turns out that Lola's script fit Lucille's life perfectly. Lola told me that family members had compared her to Lucille her whole life, pointing out how much she looked like Grandma Lucille. Since Lola was carrying Lucille's sad story, also known as inherited emotions or genetic memories, I had Lola represent Lucille, and I did EPT on Lucille's story. Through EPT, we forgave what needed to be forgiven, and we moved Lucille back into her rightful place in the family system, connecting her back into the family and the circle of love. With Lucille in her God-given place in the family, Lola was free to stop identifying in Lucille's space and to take her own God-given space in the family to live her own destiny. It was very easy for Lola to feel and release her grandmother, Lucille, because genetically, in a sense, she was Lucille. By having Lucille take ownership of all of her own life history, including the trauma, it freed Lola to let it go. Lola's very emotional connection and release of Lucille's story provided what was needed to remove the sticky methyl group from Lola's gene so she could begin to express something more authentic to her own life story. In case you're wondering how Lola is, she did great. Several months after we did this, Lola's son, Jason, began voicing Lucille's script. Lola found herself very disturbed by this and came in again for EPT. We took the script back to Lucille's childhood, where she was apparently severely abused by her father. This was the root of why she later had killed herself. While Lola once again represented Lucille, she remembered that Lucille's father's name was Jason, the same as Lola's son. This helped explain why Lola had been so distant to her son Jason, as her epigenetics had caused her to emotionally act to protect Lucille from an abusive father. After this EPT session with Lola, Jason stopped speaking Lucille's script, and he has been a different child. The whole family is doing better than ever. Is there any reason I love EPT? I'm imagining a lot of you love EPT too. In summary, you can spot a person suffering. In summary, you can spot a person whose suffering is caused by an ancestor's sad story, also known as inherited emotions or genetic memory, by noticing that 1, their suffering does not make sense with their life history, and 2, they speak a clear mental script that helps to support their ongoing suffering. To use EPT to heal this person, you must 1, determine whose sad story it is using muscle testing and deductive dialogue. 2, have your client represent the ancestor and do EPT on the ancestor who lived the actual trauma. 3, remember to say what needs to be said and forgive what needs to be forgiven. Number 4, have the ancestor take ownership of their whole life story, even the traumatic parts, so that no other family member has to carry it for them. 5, restore excluded family into their God-given space, back into the family system, and connect them in love. Sometimes bowing to the ancestor is a way to do this. EPT can help you heal inherited emotions that are keeping you from expressing your true identity and destiny. An EPT practitioner can help you release emotions that just don't make sense for your amazing life. Once you release these inherited emotional patterns, you will be free to write your own script for your life. A script of love, happiness, good health, and prosperity. Want to know more? Go to eptworks.com and get your free EPT training. You may decide to become an EPT practitioner yourself and start helping people you love become more of who they were always meant to be. Thanks for listening. As always, you can subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and go get your free training at eptworks.com. I'm Dr. Annette Cargioli, the Forgiveness Doctor. Until next time, listen, love, give. EPT works.